Okay, so welcome to the Innovation Fund Architecture and Proposal Assessor Perspective. This is the third meeting, and today we are going to discuss mainly two questions. How is a proposal assessor related to other Catalyst roles, and what activities or interactions do proposals and assessor have with other Catalyst roles? I'm not going to read too much detail, but basically, when you're wondering why is this constructed like that, like what are these roles and colors and stages? So if you zoom out in the Miro Board, there is this is like a main template where I bring out like resources and links, and there is also a link to video where I go through explaining how the board is made and why it's structured like that. And the goal is to use that same clean template where there is like no information and duplicate through different perspectives. So I had one session with Marek where we took what he's doing for the teams and other roles and relations, and then the proposal assessor. And if you look into the proposal itself, there is you can link to the Catalyst proposal for Fund 8. And there you will see all the other perspectives we want to have, basically almost for all the roles in here. And there are some cool ideas that, hey, let's use that same template to map issues or solutions and such. Any questions regarding the structure and what we are doing here, or everybody ready to jump into the first question? Cool. So let's start with the top and repeat something what we finished up with. So how is a proposal assessor related to a Catalyst team? Came up with helps with conflict resolution and then technical errors in idea scale, if there is any bothering. And then Catalyst team helps to give clear guidance what is feasible to change. So in cars and technical. And anybody from here who has some other idea where you think Catalyst team could jump in and help the proposal assessors?
So Catalyst team is IOG.
Yes. So we would assume like Marek, Danny, Chris. Yeah. So we can jump to the next one. Circle members helps with conflict resolution. Same again, so that we perhaps don't push everything to IOG right away, but use circle member as the buffer to capture some kind of conflict resolution, and maybe they can already address some. And they help to prioritize changes to improve proposal assessor work. So CA representative could kind of take these issues in, bring them to circle, and then perhaps some consensus could be found there to improve some kind of something in idea scale or yeah, so somewhere else. Any other ideas where circle members could help proposal assessors or where they could do something together?
Sorry, Stephen, what's a proposal assessor?
Proposal assessor is in our terms right now, it's a community advisor.
Okay.
So the community advisor guidelines, basically, all related to that.
Why not call it a community advisor then?
Because the community advisor is actually feels a bit of a different role. When we go back to the previous sessions, then the community advisor is more like a person who, like we are here. We come together, we participate, we coordinate, we help to facilitate, we have to like share the information. But now it comes to the issue that all the newcomers come in and ask like, okay, this community advisor helps me like that. And then you have this taxonomy issue. Okay, are he talking about we who are like roaming around and trying to help all the Catalyst members and their roles, or they're talking about a specific part which community advisors do to assess proposals. So we kind of differentiate it and to make to scope down under the role, we call it the proposal assessor.
It doesn't seem very intuitive to me. Sorry. So I always think it seems to me what you're saying is there's a proposal assessment function. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then that is fulfilled by different roles in the ecosystem. Yeah.
No, just one role.
Well, it's actually not. It's actually fulfilled by more than one role, isn't it? CAs and VCAs, for example.
No, Stephen, chill. We're talking about how it could be.
Yeah.
So maybe
I'm not. It's not about being chilled. It's about what does this mean? I didn't understand what it means.
maybe just Stephen, and also maybe just clarify a little bit the differentiation, that we know that we are everybody on the same page and know exactly what you are speaking about. Is it about the currently community advisor role, the official one, or is it the envisioned community assessor role, but a role which actually doesn't not exist yet? Because I'm not really sure about which one you speak.
So technically, it is about current fund. So all the information is meant to be current fund, unless it's a pink sticky note. So that would be something we would prefer to see. However, when devising that template, there was already made a decision to split community advisor into two different like the roles. Community advisor, what is arching through the community, flowing like we, the members, and then we could have a perspective how we help each other in these stages. We have these events, in these stages we are doing this mentorship, but also to keep the proposal assessor, like the community advisor, we now kind of know who are going into the proposals, they read it, they give their criterion, the assessment, and then they pretty much end with their life cycle. They are called also community advisors, but in order to just clearly understand what part of community we're talking about, we're given the label proposal assessor. I know it's tricky to give like labels, but in the terms of like product management and creating innovation fund, it makes it more efficient to understand.
Yeah, so I kind of get what you're saying, Tivo. I'm wondering, are we I don't want to beat a dead horse, because I feel like I've talked about this, but I think that if we're going to really call them proposal advisors, then they have to be integrated with the challenge teams, and they have to be part of that process at the very beginning of the funding round, right? And I think that can save the community advisors, when they're assessing, a whole lot of time, right? Because then they don't have to address stupid shit. They can really just address the core of the idea and the structure of the team. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and that's the reason we split up the community advisors, and it starts with the insight sharing stage, where a proposal assessor will start with the proposal assessment stage.
Okay, that's cool. Progress is progress.
So and also a difference that is there is that if you speak about proposal assessor, you just mean what's getting incentivized, and community advising is a bigger idea.
Thanks for the context.
Dumb question. Is the proposer advisor, proposer assessor meant to incentivize or allow proposers to rate proposals in the same challenge?
There is a rule, but I don't exactly mean what you asked. But there are rules that you cannot assess your own proposals. You cannot assess proposals where you have the same proposal in your challenge, like restrictions. You can't assess proposals in the challenge where you have proposals. And then you should not assess proposal you help to create or are collaborating with, but that's now our gray area. You can't, hard to maybe sometimes make a difference. So that will be proposal assessor requirements.
So still the same as community advisor, pretty much.
So basically they are community advisor guidelines. All of this is related to community advisor guidelines. But in order to kind of the later, when we want to take this in research even further, to make the difference between community advisors, because it comes up every fund that what are these community advisors, like they are only doing that specific thing and they are gone. This is not community advising. And in order to kind of fight against that and make it more clear to the starters, if you could just call it proposal assessors and they learn, okay, I'm taking a role as a proposal assessor, this is my guide, and they go around, I'm a proposal assessor, I'm doing this. Everybody understands what they're doing. If they say I'm a community advisor, yes, we can somewhat understand, but it's again, now that the gray area starts somewhere there. With that extra label we introduce, we make it, I see it more efficient way to communicate. So yeah, and today's session basically it's about community advisors, but we call it proposal assessors.
Tiva, have you spoken to IOG about the term community coordinator?
Community coordinators.
Yeah, because the IOG decided to use the term community coordinator some while ago for funding proposals in their infinite wisdom. Because everyone knows what a community coordinator is. So have you spoken to IOG about that, particularly Chris, maybe?
No.
Okay.
And that's a good take, but that would be then come in a proposal, a proposer perspective, and like to make a difference between the funded and unfunded proposer. Perhaps both of that could be discovered and timestamp, or not timestamp, but like research in that session. But today scope is proposal assessors. And unless you want to somehow connect the proposal assessor with the funded proposals.
No, what I mean is there's a kind of a background to this where IOG have, I suppose that we're kind of pushing back against this, where IOG have coined phrases like community advisor, like community catalyst coordinator, for example. So this is a community discovery process that you're doing, Tiva, where you're saying we're coming up with our own taxonomy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. That's good. Yeah.
Fine. But there are two changes basically. So there is also assessment reviewers, which I call veteran community advisors. So just again to clarify what is that, but that might not be needed when it comes down to that. But yeah, today, so going back to the circle members, how proposer assessors could, how circle members could help proposer assessors? Is there any more ideas other than conflict resolution and helping prioritizing their problems and issues?
Maybe some input on clarifying some, let's say, difficult topics. Well, you see a lot of community advisors, they are not sure how to assess, let's say, for example, a series of 10 proposals, whatnot. Should they do now same assessments or anyhow individual assessments or whatnot? And then I think to have maybe some more input from the circle sometimes who can come up with guidelines directly to the CAs and say, hey, we thought about it and we think for this funding round simply, maybe let's try like this, Chuck, but providing somehow some direct guidance there.
Clarifying difficult topics, help to create and improve guidelines. So this is something they could do together because we have an open system.
I think it will happen naturally because Nadi, what you are doing is very much healing into all these directions, right? And huge shout out, by the way.
I suppose also, Tiva, the problem sensing rubric, which Nadia is also working on as well, could plug in there into the. I'm not sure how. How are problems sensed from the community into Circle? Yeah. which is already work going on that in the.
I think just from experience, I would also say there's so you have helps to prioritize changes to improve proposal assessor work, helps to create and improve guidance. And I think there's an aspect of trying to think about how to say it, because it's sort of in both of those things, but there's a little bit of helping facilitation of organizing around things and connecting people who are wanting to work on similar stuff. But that might be within the broader community itself and less about the individual proposal advisor. Does that make sense? These three people are in silos thinking about sort of a similar topic, or like is happening with Allison and Michael right now. They have very complementary things that they're working on that have to do with the CAs and could come together. So a little bit of that kind of helping connections be made.
Sorry, I think there should be rules for set problems that are sensed onto Circle. I don't think they should just be, just arbitrary.
You're saying there should be a framework by which the problems are defined when they end up in.
Yeah, there is a framework which we're working on. And the reason for is a framework is so that it's not arbitrary. It's not just someone doesn't just come in and make it up as they go along. Okay. There has to be, for example, a problem that's raised on Circle has to be relevant to the mission of Cardano, and it has to have a current state and a future state. Okay, everything else is irrelevant.
I think I agree with you. If it ends up as a prioritized problem, it should have a way of defining it, and it should be able to be placed there in a way that it's understandable, and there's expectations about what need to be developed there. And so I think that's very healthy. And I guess what I'm talking about there as far as connections and things is more like the it getting to that stage that you're hearing those issues and helping people to.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that for the sake of clarity in the community, Circle members should only be dealing with prioritized problems and nothing else. Anything else of that is more about subcircles. Yeah, it's more about their communities and so on. That's work that's done outside of Circle. Once it gets onto Circle, it's about putting problems on the board.
Interesting. You kind of introduced a new role, what I haven't added here, which is subcircles. But what could we call community advisors, the subcircle right now? Okay, so now the community advisors, which are not, who can how to say it? They don't have to do proposal assessments in order to be community advisors, but now they are the community advisors because they're part of subcircle. Maybe that made sense. So the community advisors to me is something, a broad term, and you're a community advisor if you do proposal assessments, but you're also a community advisor if you are part in subcircles. So because you're advising community, like the name, the label of the name kind of, it gives you hint what you are. So in that, knowing that, do we want to have another role here, which is about subcircles, or we could put all the related subcircle relations under the community advisors? Yeah.
I think it's the community advisors who form the subcircles.
Okay. But then when we go back to the circle members to kind of go with Stephen's flow, the first thing, participate in the defined work framework to provide difficult topics. So that would give for the proposal assessor, but I think that's an activity they do in these stages, feedback how proposal assessing went. So basically after they did their stuff, they're like, okay, there are some issues I want to take on. And that is something they could do in these stages. So basically we went back to the after proposal assessment or meanwhile. And now we don't want to give the circle members the work to filter and clarify difficult topics, but instead still bring it to the community advisors as the sub-circle.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, I mean, what I just described is the existing process. It's always been the process for Circle. So it's how anything that's brought to Circle should be in the form of a prioritized problem. Yeah. So how that relates to anything that it could be called sub-circles, it could be called community sensing. What the rep does in their community is flexible until it gets until it's crystallized in the form of a problem. Yeah. And that's how it currently works. I mean, if you want to change that, it can be changed, but that's how it currently works.
Yeah. Okay, and now the question is, after the community advisors filter and clarify the difficult topics, where does the work of connecting people, would now the circle members step in and help to coordinate them and help to create guidance, or the circle members, where would their role be in that?
Well, I mean, circle members can decide to create working groups on things. But if it's usually, I mean, I don't know, Nadia, maybe you want to chip in here. I mean, if it's related to a particular scope of representation, like community advisors, then it usually devolves back into that community. So the community advisor community would work on it, for example. Circle reps should just push forward problems. Okay, they shouldn't really manage them, if you like. That should be for the community to work on them. That's how it's been so far, or should be so far.
No. One thing to this in Catalyst Circle version 1, for example, we had a really specific problem. It wasn't Fund 7, and we didn't, Fund 7, I think, or earlier, and we didn't have enough CAs to run, let's say, comfortably through the whole challenge, right? And what happened is that I, together with Victor, toolmakers and maintainers and CAs, we came together with ILG and set up a really, a first onboarding process really for CAs to coordinate it, join the ecosystem, run through workshops, get up to speed and the whole stuff. And we initially tried to onboard 30 or 40, and we made between 200-300, something like 250, right? And it was really a situation where we saw really how the Catalyst Circle itself, its members also, because the members are members for some reasons, right? Mostly because they are really well connected and networked in the ecosystem. And for them, it's kind of really easy to set up a coordinated effort from the community. So I think sometimes we shouldn't push the circle too much into a way to say, no, they do just sensor and nothing else. Not true. There are spaces where they have to act and also prove themselves as, hey, Circle is not only a sensor and just observing what is going on, they are also able to.
Yeah, you're right, Felix. From the first circle, I was thinking, I suppose it's how it's worked out in practice. And I suppose that's going to depend partly on the personalities of the reps, how they work, and how the different iterations of each circle. I suppose what's emerged is more structured sub-circles. You know, I mean, maybe there could also be working parties created between circle reps. Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that has happened in the past. You're right.
Okay, so from that, what I took out was that circle members are also about connecting people and creating and helping guidance. So they are as much as helpful as community advisors themselves, but keeping the same things to the community advisors. So they both do it, but the difference is that community advisors, as for now, do the filtering and clarifying difficult topics. Else there is just too much for circle members to do. So it would be nice if they have a prioritize problem, like what Stephen is saying, when having like a more concise issue to bring up to the circle members table, and then they have the opportunity to even participate or coordinate the, or just make aware that this is a problem here.
To this point, I think that having a very clear way of having this rubric, Stephen, is very important, because I have to agree with Felix that it's hard to really, it's like, it sounds good to define it really specifically, but the reality is that some people come to raise an issue that's very hard for them to raise, and maybe one-on-one, and they say, this is happening and I'm concerned about it. And then then my experience was you helped that person work through, like, okay, what you're seeing or like gut feeling might actually be something else. How do we define that? So it comes to it. And this can also happen in a conversation with 20 people, that it needs that little bit of refinement. And that is its own kind of a process that a circle member would do on behalf of the group or the individual, where someone might be very skilled at that. Ideally, that group of 20 people in that conversation have that framework to go through, and they do it, and they bring this nice, they bring like a nice prepared meal to your house for food, right? But a lot of people show up with like a bag of groceries, and it's like, I don't know how to mess with this, but can you help me?
From a top-down point of view, from the community subcircles, it may look like that. I'm thinking of, like, for the general Cardano community, when they say, what is Circle doing? Okay, and they come along to Circle from Twitter or that. They're not part of the community Discord that we are here. They're not part of our Telegram group. And they look at the board, and they want to see, they look at the board, and they want to, that needs to be transparent and accountable to them. So what needs to be there for a problem is that the problem is relevant to the mission of Cardano, and it has a current state and an expected state. That's all I'm saying.
I agree with you.
Everything that needs to be the minimum for Circle.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just talking about it from the purpose for this one of talking about how the circle member and the assessors interact with each other, which is, I think, your goal is to log here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I wonder, should I somehow capture that in order to have a relation with circle member or community advisor, you have to do this rubric? But I don't know, maybe that's too detailed for this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too hijacked or sidelined by the Circle aspect necessarily, but
okay. So now JP again have a good say. How would what relations, or how could you help proposal assessor as a circle member admin or a facilitator or the group?
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting question. First off, I just on the circle members comment, I feel especially when you're talking about problems coming and how do they get to the circle members and so on and so forth from the community. Well, I would think, and forgive me if I'm not understanding, but wouldn't it go to the subcircles first? Like, that's the community entry point. Those are the people who are by word of mouth kind of get connected, and then that is how it would get to the circle through that connection. So yeah, so okay, for me, and apologize if you just went over this and I'm repeating. But yeah, okay, so I would see that would be important. I think where the admin team could help would be around documentation, around helping track the movements, about helping. We're developing this community governance playbook as well on the admin team. So any of these processes or flow charts or anything like that, we could perhaps help. I get right now the problem is the CC admin team, first off, wasn't funded for the first circle, really the first two circles. So it's just been now. so now we're wanting to take on more. We're trying to look for other things that we can help as well. So I think with stuff like this around documentation, around having a central repository, supporting community, or at least the circle, discuss these topics. And, you know, we're also looking into how we blast out information from the circle through the admin team to the community. So using different platforms as well. I think in the last call, I can't remember what the call, it was about the outreach. I think it was a Twitter space. And one of the suggestions was having an outreach person. So that's something I think that the admin team would be well positioned to as well, having that position to help broadcast this information and make those connections in venues that aren't Discord or, you know, the kind of usual suspects that we all attend. Yeah, those are initial thoughts. You know, I was here just kind of listening and hopefully providing something useful, but there you go.
Yeah, something what the last session came out, I believe it was Nori, helps you to coordinate with circle members. So sometimes it's not easy to get in touch with the circle members themselves, but the admins, there is like a easier way to get in touch. And what you just said, so that would be if a proposer, assessor, the cool coded community advisor, but sometimes maybe if community advisor doesn't have the knowledge or resource, or like when a document comes out, then maybe a circle admin has a better overview in what stage any of the process is. Was that what you were trying to say?
Yeah, you know, I think we're kind of ready to help and trying, as Randall says, trying to remove or reduce the bureaucracy while providing useful tools that people can take and adapt for themselves. So I think that's kind of what we would be looking to support once these ideas, or once we start seeing trends of what works and doesn't work, is how do we document that and help make it available for public consumption for many groups, for anybody that wants to maybe start their own. And Randall, if I sound bureaucratic, it's because I'm a bureaucrat in real life, and so this is my my usual you know, language vernacular. So I apologize for that. Well, no, I don't apologize. It's just what it is.
So now I know why I was not paying any attention. Kidding.
Noticing trends of how we could do what, have a,
yeah, how we could document, how we can again, like we want to help with that knowledge transfer. So what happens in the circle and between the circle and the community, we want to be tracking and capturing as much as we can in as it relates to community governance, that is.
right?
That would be in a timely manner as well, I presume. The presentation to the community.
Yeah, you know, I think it depends on the issue, and we're often ready if something came up, and we stand ready to help, and we're looking to expand. So as we expand, we're gonna have more capacity, and yeah, and how we onboard and make it so people can join, and maybe we get to a point where it's more of a jobs board, you know, like we hear a lot about that, where it's a decentralized open source. You sign in, you see a task, you want to complete it, you complete it, it's in a smart contract. Like those types of innovations could really, you know, make it less a group of people being required to do everything, and kind of have that almost as governance as a service set up, where you go in and you kind of can do this for your own context.
Hello, I had a question.
Yes.
Yes, especially like as Miss like no, right now the person mentioned that there is no governance as a service not available currently. That is why Miss like you are trying to create such a platform.
So it's just, it's things that we're looking into on the admin team, not on this call here, but it is something that we're exploring and different aspects of governance as well. So we have like treasury management and then facilitation, you know, note takers, and trying to build up more of a guild of community members with these skills that can then be deployed as needed across the community without much oversight, but in fact it works itself as needs arise.
Where it helps to coordinate community members also. So when several proposal assessors come together, you also see the basic, it's almost closely to see the trend. Okay, a lot of proposal assessors have the same issue, or I don't know, whatever it may be, and then you can also help to coordinate that them together. Moving on, related to, so how proposal assessors could work together with challenge teams? I think the first obvious one would be to have more insight regarding what is impact for a challenge, and when they assess the proposals, they have better understanding of alignment. What else would you, how, I see a lot of challenge team members here. How have you, or as any proposal assessor, came to you as then community advisors, basically?
We could talk a week about this. It's a mess. In the previous roundtable of challenge teams, we talked about the fact that it's too long process, that it's 6 months basically that you start with them, and then like you get very excited about the whole thing and you start getting people into your challenge, and then you get the proposals in and time passes, and then actually after like 3 months your work starts and you're supposed to hold hands and make sure that they are actual people and walk with them for the next 3 months that they carry out their funded proposals. So it's 2 different types of people you need. You need that kind of like people who are kickstarting things, and then you need people who are good in like making sure things happen. So I think challenge teams in itself is a very new concept, and it has to evolve.
So, but assuming the challenge teams now are perfect team, you have these who kickstart it and make it wide, and everybody's joining in. And then at that point, proposal assessors have nothing to do with the challenge team. But now once the proposal assessors start assessing the proposals, that would be the midway. So you're saying that challenge teams do not really interact with community advisors because they kind of come after now when the proposals are funded.
Yeah, so that's the part that is fun, like that's the part that is incentivized by IOG at the moment. They expect you to start working when they are funded, not before that.
So that would actually be an issue here. So
did I get you right, Tommy? You're saying that the challenge team shouldn't start working with the proposers until after they're funded?
That is the expectation from IOG.
That's like not what they said when they introduced the idea of challenge teams, was it? I mean, I thought that they were supposed to help the people focus on actually writing proposals.
Nope.
For which the challenge was created. I mean,
the expectations have been that you present the challenge in the beginning, which is like 5 minutes or less, and then you wait for 3 months. Whoever gets funded, then you keep those people in check, and that's the role. And I'm not very happy with that.
No, that seems kind of ass backwards to me.
Yeah, Steve and Tommy, I'll jump in here as a first-time challenge team member. It did seem confusing because we basically are there to present the challenge, and make sure that the proposers understand it. And so there's like a little bit of, for instance, I was in the miscellaneous challenge, and we needed to say like, look, you know, you're going to get a bad score. Anyway, there was a bit of advisement, but like Tommy is saying, it's true. They don't really expect, or you're not really incentivized to do that. So yeah, it's a bit quizzical. Just to give my perspective as a new challenge team member.
Well, I think the miscellaneous challenge is very valuable, but for the challenge team is very hard, right? Because you have no idea what's coming at you.
I'm in the Fund 7 MISC challenge, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then in relations to this discussion, how this new role or this role of the proposal assessor, and that could be something that takes off of the challenge team, because we definitely, you need a proposer assessor, and it is different than community advisor. So I'm just getting my mind around all this. So thank you for presenting it today.
Yeah, I think there's, I mean, I'm Newman, you're on the miscellaneous challenge. I'm on the lead for audibility, and Joe's also Joe Alamon for audibility. And as Tommy says, there's been some confusion over what is the challenge team for, you know, some confusion, particularly between assessment and oversight. And I've just pasted the scope there. The scope is kind of, you immediately the fund started, all the challenge team is supposed to do is give a presentation on the challenge. And once the proposals are funded, they're supposed to help with the onboarding of the cohort, the funded cohort, set up a coordination meeting. And then they're supposed to do one-to-one mentoring. Now this is where the confusion comes in. What is that one-to-one mean? What does that actually mean? I know some challenge teams are doing that collectively. They're doing it, having meeting people en masse. Some people are doing one-to-one meetings, and there's confusion about, well, what are those meetings for? The original intention, I think, for the final retrospective was how does, not whether any proposals were successful or not, but whether the challenge was successful. You know, were the proposals successful enough to make the challenge successful? That was the original idea. And what it seems to be evolving into is some kind of support for proposers once they're funded. But I mean, but there seems to be a bit of flip-flopping about this from IOG, so I'm not really clear.
Well, it's psychologically messed up, right? If you've gone through this 3-month process and you've gotten funding, you've been affirmed, you've been confirmed, and you just want to do your thing. You don't want anybody holding your hand, you know, from the community or anywhere else. You just want to do the thing that you've been waiting on for 3 months. And it's just, I don't know. That's probably a good thing. I don't sit and...
Sorry, Steve, thought you were done.
No, that's all right. I was just going to rant. I'll be quiet.
Isn't it like, there's a lot of stuff, but my understanding, we had a meeting yesterday in the CAVCA with Lynn was there. He's she's part of the challenge team. And it just seems like there's a lot of missed opportunities for IOG to coordinate with the challenge team. I'm not on a challenge team. I'm going based on that conversation we had yesterday. Like, challenge team's goal is for the proposer to be successful, but the proposer has to be accountable themselves and be responsible. And the challenge teams really don't have any weight. Like, if these proposers don't show up for these one-to-one or these mentoring meetings, you know, en masse or one-to-one, there's nothing. They just don't show up, and then that's it. And then they still
show up to the coordinator.
They still get their funding, which the challenge team could be that intermediary between the proposer and them actually getting their funding. Hey, did you show up for this coordination meeting with your challenge team? and the challenge team would report on that, but it doesn't seem like there's any of that there.
Yeah, so there is a lot of talk.
I mean, I'm sorry. I just, it's like, does anybody seriously think that there's a challenge team within the community that needs to hold DC Spark's hand? Right? That the DC Spark wants that, like who, I mean, it's just really a messed up idea.
So guys, let's not spend any more time on this because we have a proposal in for Catalyst GPS, and if that's gonna work out, then we're gonna take things into a more strategic direction and a little bit less of this gung-ho, ad hoc, whatever miscellaneous stuff that we're doing at the moment. And hopefully, I'm kind of going ahead of myself, but hopefully in time to come, we will have strategic objectives where we have sponsors, and then those sponsors will probably have teams around them, and they will oversee this overall development towards that strategic objective. And I think this was pretty much the initial idea with the challenge teams also. But what makes challenge teams challenging is that they keep changing all the time, and we have these changing challenges from fun to fun. So let's pause this and move forward, because challenge teams itself is there at the moment as it is, but it's by no means perfect.
I would defer from that and say we should work on what is, not what it could be.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what is, Tommy, what you're suggesting is not what is, it's what could be. So shouldn't we be working with the challenge teams as they are?
One thing to notice is that, and this session is not about challenge team perspective, so we go into a lot of detail relations to other proposals. But right now, what I'm trying to actually achieve here is how challenge team is helping proposal assessors, or do they have any activities? But listening all of you, I will say that it would be nice that if they help with the assessing the impact, but it's like, probably it's good to have, but it's nothing they have been written or doing. So
I think there's
I would say the challenge teams have no relations to proposal assessors as of now, and we can move on to that.
I would disagree slightly. I think the only thing they do is, before the proposals are funded, they challenge teams, the newly minted challenge teams, as it were, do a presentation at town hall on the scope of the challenge. And that actually can add context for community advisors or proposal assessors, because it gives you, the challenge teams own the scope of the challenge. So they usually have the person who has set the challenge, unless they've passed it on to the challenge team themselves. So the challenge teams, if you like, have the intellectual ownership of the challenge. And that can or should, perhaps, maybe, provide guidance to proposal assessors.
That was a great one. Challenge team shares context about challenges, proposals, put proposals into proposers.
Yeah, so ideally, I think it's in the form, isn't it? How is your proposal relevant to the challenge? Okay, so obviously a community advisor or a proposal assessor is going to pick up on that, and also how that's framed is if ultimately the responsibility of the challenge team.
Yeah, this is one thing that I've been bitching about recently, that the challenges have to be uniform and they have to be somehow measurable against one another. And once we have that, then we can have proposer assessors working more meaningfully.
It is a problem. Yeah, there's a lack of consistency between challenges. Yeah.
No, it's all very different. So that is kind of hard. But I do agree with you that there should be some uniformity.
Okay. So next up, we did cover it, but I think we might find more stuff. So how community advisors could help proposal assessors. So how community advisors could help them each other. So when we talk about community advisors now, think of as people like all of us in here who facilitate, participate, coordinate, have projects, mentor, and now proposal assessors who just do the assessments for the proposals. They read the proposals, they read the challenge, and trying to figure out, is it impactful, visibility, and auditability.
So
how can we help them?
Coming back to what Stephen said just before, we're not talking about how it could be or should be, but we're talking about how it is.
Yes. And if we add something how it could be, then it's a pink sticky note, volunteering activity. So we started capturing this a lot in the in this section. But yeah, we try to capture the most what is happening right now, so that we can have the huge picture, and in a later we can have better idea of what are the pain points.
Okay, so in that line of thinking, this community advisors actually is that proposal assessors.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Tiva, the community who comment on the proposals before the text of the proposal is finalized. Where is that in terms of proposal assessment? Because doesn't that contribute to the proposal assessment process on this board? Where is the line for the community commenting on the proposal?
You mean this comment on idea and proposal? I'm not sure what I get it.
Well, that, if you recall, going back to the start of Catherine's process in the earlier town halls, this was encouraged. It still is encouraged, to kind of encourage the community to go and comment on proposals before the text is finalized. Why? So that the community can, the idea was that the community would help the proposer iterate the text, refine their proposals before the text was cut off prior to the CA period. Okay.
So you would say,
I would say that is part of proposal assessment, because it's, or you could say it's proposal refinement actually.
Mm-hmm. Encourage the proposal assessors to comment and refine proposals.
It's not proposal assessors. Well, I suppose in this sense, the community takes the role of the proposal assessor, everyone, because anyone who can comment on a proposal prior to the text of that proposal being frozen, it's like playing it's playing almost like a CA role, if you like. That was, they can, it's like okay.
So since it's related to timeline, I think we captured it in a proposal draft, proposal environment, and they're all comment an idea or a proposal. So it would be nice if they do it. But in relation to community advisors, so when, let's say I'm doing a proposal right now and I'm going to give feedback to a proposal, now I'm wondering, okay, how do I know, is this proposal feasible? I look into the links, and now I go to the Discord server and ask, hey, what else you know about this person? Now you as a community advisor, you see it. How are you in any way incentivized to kind of share the feedback, or is it already captured here that the sharing advice helps to keep up to date how it was evolved and how it will change? So, but this is more related to process, how fund to fund stuff change. We don't, when community advice proposal assessors do the proposal assessments, we actually do not expect them to get any feedback and do it their own. So to make sure that they do not don't have group thinking there.
It's not really a requirement of the role, right? It's like, it's an encouraged piece. And I think that's kind of fundamental here. It's not a requirement that someone, and in fact, experientially, most of the many community advisors come in the beginning of their opening of registration. So it's not even a perception of part of the role, although I think from a community perspective, as it's encouraged, and people get in the habit of doing that, it's not defined as part of what the expectation is. And that's probably a key piece for why it's not that and the fact that it's not incentivized are probably the key factors for why it's not adopted in the same way and with the same. It also was brought up in a lot of the joint sessions that this would be such a more valuable time as far as the proposal development and the ability to assess the idea itself. It's really a key place for that. So maybe, I don't know. I think this really warrants discussion because it would be such an opportunity for wins in all directions for the proposers, for the future CAs, for community advisors, for however we're defining these roles. Every role really here benefits from that process being really well executed.
Yeah. Okay. One maybe a critical question. Now, if the proposal assessor now we look at this and see, oh, that should be more encouraged by community advisors. And now we go out and say, all the proposal assessors, if you are struggling with writing your committee assessments, go out there reach out in whatever, Telegram, Discord, wherever, and talk with the other community advisors to help you write your assessments. But now, again, like what I mentioned before, the coping, is that something, is this a win for us if other members help other members to write assessments or give hints or guidance or pretty much give an example? Or this is kind of spoon feeding the community advisor, like the upcoming community advisors too much that they don't do their own thinking, and this will lead to that kind of like a harder, I don't know how to explain it, but the more we make it too easy for others and make things for them, the more we have to start doing it in the future. So yeah, do we want to have some kind of differentiations there that we are providing guidance, like how, where do you get the guidance, but not giving results?
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
My feeling after listening to this for a while is that this graduating stage, when you've done assessments, you've assessed proposals and you've made good assessments, and that's recognized by whoever's recognizing and giving people the status of being a veteran CA, that at that point then there maybe could and should be a fork, right, where somebody who's graduated to that level can then either become a veteran CA and do that work at the end of the process, or they graduate and they move up to the beginning of the process and they really work with challenge teams and proposers individually to refine their proposal, right? Because they've learned, they see what good proposals are, and so then they're more qualified to work at the beginning of the funding round to really help people have good proposals. Like all these steps to me are so that we have good funded proposals, and to prevent the overwhelming thing that happens to CAs, we can use that experience and understandings gained from assessing to really do that work at the beginning. And to me, the only problem there is, if we do that, is like, how do you reward them, right? How do you keep it so that everybody says, yo, fuck that, I'm not working on the front end, because you make more money on the back end, right? You have to incentivize people to work on the front end somehow. And that's I think that sounds tricky to gauge, but it seems like a more well-rounded process if we can do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to formulate that into the relations between proposal assessors and community advisors. But it's more like a process, which is something what after the research we can start coming up with, like how do we change this innovation fund, and how do we make sense? How do we make a circular economy in that sense? What you just mentioned. Okay, we can come back to the community advisor if something else pops up. But moving to the proposers. So here is something very obvious. So how proposal assessors help proposers, or at least how they're supposed to help.
Don't try to game the system.
Okay, so we will say
that never happens.
And just chatter and care and like, hey, I'm here watching. I see your proposal. I've read it. You know, it doesn't necessarily take like we were talking about in the chat. It doesn't necessarily take expertise just to say, oh, I'm in the community and here are some thoughts. And I think that that does incentivize or helps the proposers to understand that they are talking to a real person and not just submitting into an empty void. You know, I like to just send comments, and it, I mean, I guess on the other side is just like vapid. Is that a word? Like it's just sort of fluff shit posts. You know, just hey, good job. But I do think that that type of feedback to the proposers.
I mean, for anyone who's submitted proposals, think of the comments that's been on your proposals over the past few funding rounds, and they can be divided into stupid comments, into comments that are helpful, and maybe just like you say, Tivo, they're kind of interesting idea. And then you might get mentor type comments where this is a great idea, but have you thought of this? Have you done it this way, or could you do it this way? And that's what a mentor is. A mentor has understanding of what you're doing. Okay, they understand in depth your proposal, including the execution of the proposal. That's something a community advisor does not do. Community advisors are just incentivized to assess proposals, not the content or the execution of the proposals. You know, a community advisor can, at scale, assess proposals if they don't even have the technical knowledge of it in theory. That's the theory behind the crowdsourced idea behind CAs. Whether it works in practice or not is debatable. Okay. And the other thing that's never happened really is that mentorship has never been incentivized. That might be quite interesting. Maybe there should be a separate role from CAs that's kind of like a community mentor, and maybe that should be incentivized separately, because I think it's a very different role from a CA. Or yeah, that's my view.
Much agree to that. I think Steve, for example, what you did as mentor, for example, with WADA, or when I act as proposal mentor role, it's a total different role to really. I mean, as a CA, you don't set up weekly calls with the with the project, try to help them figure out where they are, figure out okay how to apply for this fund, but to create a strategy for 3 funds or whatnot. That's not your job as CA at all, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you know, like that's, I mean, you know, like the fact that I'm in WADA is more based on my relationship with Mercy, right? You know, and that she considers me, you know, it's like, it's not me saying, okay, I want to be a mentor. You know, she asked me, you know, she had to ask me more than one time because it was such a weird idea to me.
That's
you know, and I don't know, I think that we do need mentors, but I don't know how we keep the arrogant blowhards from jumping in and saying, oh, I'd be a great mentor, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, God, it's tricky because it's kind of a catch-22. The mentors tend to be unpaid because they've developed organically behind the scenes, and now it's a problem because it's not sustainable. You know, to be, you know, to have, we need to incentivize mentors somehow.
It even becomes dangerous to be a mentor now, because the projects you mentor look now like, these are your projects and you're asking for all this money, and you as a mentor now you're in the target because you mentor these projects, right? So, fuck. So we start now to attack our mentors, like other folks, like Victor or whatnot. Fucking makes no sense.
I mean, the concept of community, because community advisor is supposed to be, and I don't mean this to be derogatory, it's supposed to be quite a superficial role. You know, it's not, you know, that it was supposed to be crowdsourcing the assessment of the proposal, okay, just to ensure the proposal is sufficient quality to go on to be funded, and then whether the idea was good or not is supposed to be decided by the voters. Now, there's been some creep recently, and I've heard this, that's shifted a little bit into the CAs and particularly the VCAs becoming much more like voters in terms of assessing the idea. And I think this has to stop because that's not their job. That's the voters' job.
Much agree. I think one obvious differences as well. CAs are anonym, right? Normally, you as proposer, you don't know who assessed your proposal. A mentor is not anonym, right? A mentor states, yeah, you can't work with an anonym mentor, maybe. But yeah, much agree also to what Stephen said, to really. And to be honest, I'm really afraid also for the CAs just to see how much power they become or they have, because they literally decide to more than a half about if the proposal gets voted or not. And if you have just 2 CAs ranking a proposal, or 3, there's 3 people, for example, on a challenge proposal, that sometimes it's perfect, right? You have a challenge proposal who sets an allocation of $1 million budget, and you have fucking 3 CAs who decide on this. And that's, so we come in, okay, it's great that we have them anonym and whatever and all the time, but if they have the full power of the whole stuff, it's very dangerous because you can never verify if there is funny stuff going on with some CA, let's say, groups or whatnot, right?
Yeah, but Felix, that's not going to be a problem anymore because everyone is just giving 5 stars because they don't want to be flagged out.
Yeah,
filtered out.
That's another topic.
Well, you know, as a side thing to that topic, I mean, are poorly rated proposals, have any poorly rated proposals won funding?
Yes, it depends on, like, for example, the strength of the community. I think there's been proposals, for example, below 3 stars that have been voted for. It depends on the community. I won't mention names, but it depends on the strength of the voting community and the wallets as well, I would say.
Sure.
Somebody added the
But it's not a 50-50 thing, right? I mean, it is the majority of the proposals have really high ratings, right?
Yeah, I think in the last fund, correct me if I'm wrong if there's any statisticians, but I think in the last couple of funds, there was a correlation between the CA rating and what was voted. So it's broadly matched. So it's an exception, but it does happen when low scored, yeah, but mostly it correlates, I think.
Okay.
Regarding relationship creating, so you would say that proposal assessor should create the relationship with proposer, or like, is that what you're asking here?
Yeah, I wrote that in. I think that it's at that first touch, at some point, and it was maybe Steve that said, you know, the reason why I'm here is because of a relationship with a person, and I think that that's really what it comes down to. And I think it was Dorr that you know, when they asked what Catalyst was a series of meaningful relationships, and I've seen this come up and again, and it really is. It's like, how do we create a meaningful relational interaction that sustains itself over time? And this could be where that happens, you know, creating that environment where the network is formed, a bond is formed, and that it could be in any kind of format. It could be as an assessor or a mentor, or, you know, or an enemy, a frenemy. It could be like, oh, I hate this guy, and then they, you know, that you know, the people we love to hate. So yeah, that's just what I meant by that. It was just sort of an idea.
I'm gonna delete that sticky, but I points out similar proposals. So that is kind of relationship creating when you as assessor, you go to a proposal, you give assessment, and then you go on to another and you are like, oh, this is something I just read about, so a similar idea, and you put it into assessment, and that kind of already starts creating the network. what you described.
That collaborative layer to sort, because I get, I would imagine that the proposers aren't looking at the other, they're not spending times with that perspective of looking at all the other. Yeah. And you just share, you like, oh, did you see this? Or, oh, you should check out this. Yeah, definitely. That is definitely a role that role, that's the relationship between these two roles.
That's interesting, Newman. Do you think you could incentivize collaboration somehow? Let's say you have a proposal submission phase, okay, and then that Danny says at town hall, previous town halls, if you have a similar proposal to someone else, reach out to them and merge your proposals together, because that has a track record of working well. It has in the past. Maybe that could be incentivized, okay, so that if you do a joint proposal with someone, not only you mentor each other, but then if it gets funded, you get an extra bit of AIDA or something.
Oh, that's a great idea. I think then maybe this sticky itself could be moved around, because I added it also to community advisor, giving that these people like us who are not assessing proposals, but we do look, oh, this proposal is happening right now, because we all have our own proposals, what we're like doing, and the mission and alignment, we usually want to get to the end goal, and we sometimes notice, oh, somebody's coming with their idea, which is doing pretty much something similar we're already doing. So with helping to bootstrap, and that if community advisors have that information and relay that back to the proposal assessor, they now also have an easier time assessing, because they have, oh, this and this and this proposal is similar. Maybe I could assess them together.
You could even apply it to, although I know this has been a controversial issue and I don't want to go down that route, but resource feasibility across multiple proposals. There's a kind of positive side to that, where if someone is putting in multiple proposals and using different resources in the community, why not identify those communities from a collaborative perspective rather than from a competitive perspective? Because currently it's competitive. So currently everyone is just like encouraged to go off on their own, submit lots of different proposals, but if a CA or some role, not a CA role, but something like that, identified the resource feasibility, identified the cross proposal resources, and just said, why don't you work together? That kind of thing.
I'm gonna color them pink in community advisor and challenge teams, because I feel like challenge teams has the same power to, oh, they are similar and they actually have even better view on that. But since it's not their something they should do, so that's I wrote it as a pink. But now I'm just wondering, because community advisor is incentivized to do great assessments, would it be okay to kind of assume they are going to point out similar assessments, if like similar proposals, if they noticed, because they are incentivized kind of doing so? It's a better assessment if they do. I think
there's potentially a conflict of interest there, because a community advisor assesses the proposal once it's frozen, once it's in the final state. What we're talking about is prior to that, and I think there's different interests at play here. And there's also a different incentive regime. Like the CA is incentivized at scale. Okay, presently, whether we want to change that or not is another matter. But currently, a CA gets rewarded for the maximum and a large amount of proposal assessments. That's what they get rewarded for, and whether they're excellent or good. They don't get rewarded for. That's a kind of a conflict between that scale, that crowdsourcing approach, and a kind of more nurturing approach before the proposals shut.
I disagree slightly with the fact that it's pre, because I see value there, even if the proposals are locked and you kind of point out, hey, you both have the same proposals. If we are locked, you cannot kind of coordinate anymore, but you still can be aware that you're both doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's about, I mean, not about expectation management, because, I mean, probably Nadia, you probably know, and CAs here know this, is that you want to encourage a large number of CAs to come on to assess the proposals, because there's a lot of proposals to assess. So not all of them are going to be able to do more helpful tasks, get on an individual proposal basis. But is what you're suggesting, TiVo, is that they should be, before the proposal is fixed, targeting things or something like resource, common feasibility issues or something?
So I would assume that kind of information comes from challenge teams and community advisors. But for the proposers, after they assess, I would just say, to how many proposals you got, maybe you only got 5, but there is a high chance that if you're a specific, I don't know, I'm a technical person, you go to apps and integrations, and you look for DEXs, and then you notice, so DEX here, DEX here, DEX here, and then you just put in your assessment that, hey, there is an other DEXs also. Have you collaborated? And it's same as like giving a partnership opportunity, but it's also like it's different that you're pointing that out, that we're trying to make a collaborative network, and just to be aware there is that group and here is how to connect them.
Yeah, I would just point out what Steve, I think, referred to earlier, that like DC Spark wouldn't appreciate you teaching them to suck eggs, It's like, the CAs, with respect, the CAs don't have domain knowledge in this respect. Some of them will, of course, not saying all CAs, but some of, in general, you can't expect them to have that kind of knowledge.
It seems, I'll just tell you how I feel from just listening over these past funds, is we've developed this sort of, I've been calling it like cops and robbers mindset. Like, where are the people who are misbehaving and how can we find them and make sure that they behave? And I think it's very contrary to this, the sentiments and the goals I think most people have who have been here a long time, and to what actually works with the system, which is like, Jeremy said this yesterday in a conversation we were having, which is like, we need our processes and our roles to create conversations with each other. And those conversations are the discovery. So for example, Tavo, you just said, you have 2 DEXs where those people could talk to each other. It might turn into something, it might not turn into anything, but the conversation itself is part of the evolution. There's a conversation that happens about the ideas themselves, that if it's well formulated and well discussed across the period of time of the proposal being finalized, that the community, a broader part of the community, gets a sense of what's being developed. The proposer gets attention and the sense that people care about the success of the thing. And then when it gets to the assessment phase, you shouldn't have to really think about those elements as much because they've been really well thought out. People have come in objection to the idea or to certain aspects of it. And those things have been worked through a lot. So you can say, here's my budget. As you read my budget, you might notice, think. And I've thought about this and here's why I've done it this way. And so that you can think about it from that lens and appreciate that someone's going to have to read it who may not have that domain knowledge, but you can solve for that prior because you've had a really good and thorough conversation along the way. And then the CA into the VCA process also is a conversation. So you're just contributing to that across time so that we have a mindset of how can all these ships rise together? And if we find something wrong, yes, there's going to be some small percentage of people, maybe a noisy and a very disruptive percentage that come in and really, we have to plan for that. We have to plan for the risk of those things. But ultimately, that doesn't have to be the narrative and the sentiment that comes into these roles so that we're looking for reasons to get each other. And I think that what's happened over the past few funds, because we've experienced that, and it's hard to experience people not doing what is right according to us, that we've put a lot more weight on the gates and a lot less on the encouraging this kind of collaboration. It'd be interesting to see, this is the last thing I'll say, it'd be interesting to see what would happen if we really put an emphasis in the CA groups on getting in there and helping, and a real explanation of why that's valuable. And we painted the explanation into something that is understandable, because I think a lot of people would love that opportunity to come and help, which is why many people have come to Catalyst in the first place. You can help a different part of the process. And then when you get to playing that role, it's going to have a very similar benefit. So people like to think about ideas, and that's the place for it if it's presented in that way.
I mean, I would rather than expand the scope of the CAs, I would restrict it, and perhaps it's the role of the D-reps or a completely different role to do the domain knowledge. I don't mean restrict it in a bad way. I mean keep it simple. You know, it's just that. And also there's this question which is actually seems to be quite a live question, is the crowdsourcing of assessments working in general? Is that experiment working? And I think that's an open question, to be honest, you know, because it seems to be increasingly requiring intervention, which breaks the original intention of how it was designed.
Yeah. Eric?
Yeah, it's interesting hearing all of these things. One of the things that I'm thinking about is that a lot of these things needs to be automated. A lot of things, you know, a lot of these, we have advisors and community advisors, we have CAs, there's so many people involved that people are going to start stepping on each other's toes. It needs to be organized in a better way. And not only that, the thing is that a lot of these things that people are seeking answers to needs not to come from people. It needs to come from documentation that is written. The way you can point to them and say, you want to write a proposal about this, go to this site, this is where it is. There's so many people involved in all of this, and then you're going to have conflicts all the time. And to me, when I look at these, you know, and I think I've said this once before, obviously I'm coming from a military background. So, you know, the organization needs to work from the top to the bottom. And this is just a mishmash of everything. So I think the way I look at it is that, you know, not having so many people involved, but having better documentation and focus on getting the right documentation in so people can go there and look at it. One thing that I'm really afraid of is that what's going to happen here is that we're going to find ourselves in a place where people are going to become lobbyists. You know, someone that's really good at writing proposals and stuff like that, people are going to go to these guys and say, hey, I'm willing to give you 25% of whatever I get, you know, if you help me with the proposals and everything. And this guy is going to write everything down. And that's the danger with all of this. There has to be really set guidelines for all of this. I go back to what I said once before. You know, every time I go to these town hall meetings, I feel like it's a broken record. I'm hearing the same things, but from different people over and over and over again. And that's why I'm here. I'm here because I want you guys to succeed. I want this to be, Cardano's freaking awesome. People don't get it. You know, that 90% of the people are writing proposals, and they're in there because they want the money. I'm sorry to be such a party pooper, but that's my 2 cents. So,
I think
I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I mean, correct me, please.
I think the D-reps, you know, like, oh my God, if that's not the foundation for creating lobbyists, I don't know what is. You know, and you know, like I filled out the form, I wrote the essay because I wanted to see how they were going to structure it, but I also felt like, you know, rather me than some asshole. You know, I mean, you know, like I you know, because I know how I would approach it, you know, and I know that there are divergent viewpoints to how this community should grow than mine. And I just want to make sure that my viewpoint is represented, you know, and if I, you know, there's so many more people that I respect more than me in this community that if I see a really good crop of people wanting to be D-reps, I'll pull back, you know, because I you know, governance is the last thing I wanted to get involved with. Getting involved in crypto did not mean for me getting a fucking job, and being a DRAP or being a CA, this is real serious work. And I'm not sure I actually want to do that, but I'm totally invested in this, and I totally believe in the possibility of Cardano. I just don't want to see it screwed up. So I am willing to work. It's just not my goal. It wasn't my goal.
I mean, I agree.
I'm sorry. One thing that people are forgetting is that what we are doing is setting the ground rules for the future. The thing is that all of this, if we do this right, it will work 50 years from now. The thing is with the Cardano and all of this is that this money that comes in there, that's going to keep on rolling and rolling for people in the future to be able to come up with ideas and build on the Cardano network. We are the front runners. But there's so many people in here that are, I got a brilliant idea and I want to put this out here and I'm going to make $100,000 in Cardanos here and I'm going to develop this. That's how I feel about this group where we are right now. The people that were sitting here and trying to figure this out, we need to figure this out. Because if we don't do this the right way, the people in the future that we are working for is not going to benefit from it. What is the old saying that, I didn't plant the seed to sit under the tree. I'm doing it for the kids in the future, people to have shade, right? So that's what we're doing, isn't it? Or am I completely wrong?
I mean, Eric, the draw of this and the draw of Cardano is the decentralized platform. Okay, so, and I think there's some red flags that come up immediately. If you start talking, instead of talking about a treasury process, you start to talk about roles, something's gone wrong. You shouldn't be talking about roles. If you zoom back from this TiVo, any Miro board that has a process, the refinement of the process should get rid of roles altogether in a decentralized system. It should just be about composability of tasks. Ultimately, any role should be an interim measure. So the CAs, for example, or the VCAs, or even should be even proposers to a certain extent. Should in an ideally decentralized system, proposers would distribute out the tasks amongst themselves. Okay. That's what a blockchain governance would look like. Okay, we're not there yet. We're in danger of going down a side alley towards people's terms and conditions and roles and bureaucracy, if you like. So that's kind of the red flags. Where do we need to get to? We need to concentrate on the tasks that can be broken down simply. Okay, and also distributed as simply as possible and as efficiently as possible. So if we can break down this process in that way, I mean, as you already know from a military background as well, that is a kind of a management technique, but it's also about a decentralization technique as well. Why it also makes it resilient.
Yeah.
Because and anti-fragile, because the more centralization you have, the more professionalization you have, the more roles you have, and the more invested in that, the more fragile it is, the more centralized it is.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. That's awesome. Basically, how I see it is that in a really well-functioning democracy, you wouldn't have to vote.
I mean, the whole liquid democracy thing is going to be interesting. I think we've got a storm coming with the DREPs where will be interesting to see, and that will be a test of our, it's coming down the line. But I have my doubts about it, but like Steve, I think we just have to deal with it,
Just to clarify, my goal here is not to centralize innovation funds, even though there is a heavy focus on roles and timelines in this template. And the reason I chose to have roles in the timeline is to somehow group these pockets of brilliance we have. And we do have some different processes for different people. And in order to kind of visually see what's happening in this vast network, that's why I'm
Oh, yeah,
somewhat centralizing it.
Oh no, I wasn't.
Tivo, this is not. I mean, against you. I see what you're doing, and I mean, this is why I want to be here, because I see exactly what you're doing. You know, but my point here is that, you know, we need to the less people involved, you know, the old saying, the more chefs, the less soup, right? So we need to make it in such a way where people can find their information in another way than having to talk to people. And this is exactly what you're doing here. That's why I love being here, Tivo. I see what you're doing.
Yeah, I think you're identifying what is, Tivo. I don't want to be. It's not an accusation against you. I think you're identifying the process, as we said earlier, as it is. I would use this as an opportunity to get rid of all the roles. I would use this to identify the roles and see how to destroy them and how to decompose them. That's how I would see it in the long term.
Yeah, exactly. That could start happening in like 3 to 5 years time.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a medium to long term objective. Yeah.
Let's identify now and continue with how is a proposal assessor related to referrals. For a proposal assessor context, I think there is no relation between referrer, but is there something?
There's definitely relation, because let's say, for example, how can I get a referrer? This means I bring a project in to Project Catalyst, right? I just the onboarding or just sending them the information I know about this project already, right? When I jump in now as community advisor, I don't have a neutral position to this project. Also, especially when I know that I have received rewards to bring them in. And now when I assess them as well, I add an additional service to them. So the CA in this regard there would be definitely conflicts.
So you're saying proposal assessors have insight how proposals look like, and that's a good argument to like bring new people into and give them like the encouragement that writing proposal is not that hard, or like there is many of them I could share. How would you describe the relation?
Actually, the reason why I mentioned this in the chat is that I think it's a stupid fucking role and it shouldn't be there. And we're wasting money into something that is not giving us leverage. So we could use that money elsewhere.
I agree. For the challenge teams, for example, which are totally, or the VCAs.
So this is like the grandchild of the whale elephants. The whale elephants are the ones that should get rid of their money, which is the 13% of every fund.
It feels a bit dated, doesn't it? It feels like it refers to the earlier funds when the referrers were needed to incentivize. But I think the problem, we don't really have that problem anymore. I might be wrong.
Actually, I think you're quite right. Also from the effectiveness side, I think I don't even want to count the projects I brought into Catalyst, and what I got as referral from it. You never mention it because, well, you don't really want to say, hey, I want already this. So not even 1% of the project I think it fits, because this is, for example, something this should be taken off because it fits really to the mentors, to the proposal mentors. Very often, if you are a referrer, most likely already proposal mentor for the project, right?
Yeah, I think if we didn't have very many proposals coming in, we might want a referrer role, but that's not really our problem. It's really not our issue at all.
Yeah, and I actually like the referrers because, like, if somebody takes it serious that, oh, I'm going to onboard the greatest minds to Cardano, I'm going to go to this PhD student, I'm going to go to that university. But I think it opens up such a way to game the system and just go around with your friends or local page. Hey, want to make some money? Make something easy. Go, I don't know, to the mini proposal workshop, figure out how to make a very simple $500 proposal. You're not certain, but you have high chance to get funded because you ask so much, you provide something, but I'm going to get $2,500 because I told you to make $500 proposals. And I think that requires new tools, new thinking from all the sides to kind of game against that gaming. And I think it's just like Tommy said, waste of funding and time.
Yeah, I mean, from a real world example, I'm not sure anyone else here, but I get approached now by institutions and outside of Catalyst saying, you know, how can I use Catalyst, you know, to do X, Y, Z, okay? And I don't think of the referrer fee. What I think of is, I've never claimed a referrer fee, it doesn't even occur to me. What I think of is, where do I direct these poor people? You know, where is the place where they can't be completely confused and disorientated? You know, so that's really where we need to focus. You know, is
that's a really good point, because I have ended up in a bunch of meetings lately where it's been, you know, higher up people, and I'm almost afraid to point them to, you know, to that community, because there's too much going on. Yeah. If I'm sitting in a meeting, and I'm just going to make an example. I had a meeting about 2 weeks ago when people from Sam's Club, Walmart people, I hate to point them towards this group, because that's going to make me look like an idiot.
Yeah, and, it's a real problem.
That's a serious problem. You know,
and we're not financial advisors.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
well, I tell them what I can and say why. I usually go from why I don't say, you know, go here, you get money. I usually go in and give them the explanation to why I would start building my stuff on Cardano and start explaining that, you know, the functionalities of Cardano, and I stay away from the fundings completely.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem with that is you like, if you're going to advise people, particularly on that scale, you know, it's like, you know, first you got to find some Haskell developers or some dudes that could actually quickly learn Plutus, you know, and then you can bring your, you know, your worldwide organization onto Cardano, you know, and that's, you know, that's an issue. That's a real issue.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I'm happy to see these people being interested in it, because for the longest time, all they was talking about was Ethereum and whatever, right? So I'm just happy to be there. Yeah.
I mean, believe me, people are approaching some of us, okay, from big institutions, asking, you know, what are the opportunities in Catalyst? And it's very hard to know what to say to these people. Okay, so there are opportunities in Catalyst. We all know this. There's no infrastructure here in terms of even just decentralized infrastructure to deal with that. So it becomes like, you know, if someone approaches me, it comes down to me, literally, to actually go and have a meeting with them and then to try and debrief them as best as I can. And that's not ideal. And we need to move on from that.
So who would be a community member? Maybe another holder. How could proposal assessor help them? If it's
if we're still talking about CAs, hey guys, I'm back. I'm thinking like Twitter Spaces, there's a bunch of people on it. Everybody's into NFTs and CNFTs over there. It seems like, just to have a conversation, right? Any CA can join and have a conversation and share their thoughts about different proposals if they want to, but they would be breaking the their own anonymity. Not really, unless you know, you can share your thoughts, right, with the community, and invite people to vote, if whether good or bad, right? Like my proposal has a very passionate CA that said, hey, don't vote for this guy or vote no on this guy on one of his proposals, right? So yeah, share insights, share proposals, invite people to vote, have a conversation.
Yeah, that was great. And I would say invite on proposals also to the voters.
And as well as invite them to do assessments, right? If it's in a QA stage.
Yeah, I just want to second what Nins, that kind of outreach is really important. You know, if we can get out there into Twitter spaces, I know people are actually doing this in real communities as well, you know, with you know, community outreach in different parts of the world, telling them about the opportunities in Catalyst and, you know, what you can vote for, you know, how you can come on as a community advisor, that kind of thing.
Yeah, someone asked the others, Cardano over coffee, what's happening in Africa, how Cardano gets, like what proposals there are, and the CAs, they read the proposals, right? Supposedly. They should read the proposals and share, hey, this is the stuff that people are doing. I'm really excited about it.
What did I want to say? Nin had a really good point, because I think these assessors, these new members even, who take on the assessor role and they start doing something reasonable in the community, and they suddenly get like this, what did Nadia say? It's like a walk through the park or walk through the neighborhood, that you see what's going on. So in that sense, the assessor is a really good role, even in the beginning, if you have something to contribute, if you have some sort of perspective that can be valuable. And then this like general ADA holders, converting them into community members, that's why I asked the question in the beginning, is that there's so many of them. There's like, I don't know how many, there's hundreds of thousands of people out there doing nothing with their ADA, probably keeping it in Binance or something. So converting those people into active community members and asking them to become assessors, that would be awesome. That would be really, really good. And that is something that Alison started when she was in that role in the circle. I don't know how well the current representative is handling that, but it is definitely something that we should do. And it might be that it's not enough to keep that as a circle responsibility, but we need a bigger task force there to lure those people in.
Yeah, I think there is something which is kind of overlap. So as we talk here, we are only just addressing proposal assessor stage, but the whole goal of this Miro Board and this proposal is to go through all of these roles and have their own proposals. And this kind of thing, like invite them to do assessments, I think it's gonna be overlapping thing regarding in the community member. So that's a good insight that we got it out here already, because I was blanking in that section. And yeah.
And you think it's the onboarding routine to the proposal assessment workflow, Tivo. So the community, that's why I put everyone is a community member. Yeah. Okay. So then it becomes about disambiguating that, it's breaking that down. Okay. So some community members, okay, will become proposal assessors. Okay, and then so how do you onboard community members? You know, and there's various. I think we're making some progress. Like one way to onboard them is to identify what interests them. You know, so there's a lot of interest in NFTs. Identify that community. Go out to the NFT community and say, you know, how would you engage an NFT community? Well, you get them interested in NFT proposals. You talk about their own interest. You don't talk about Catalyst. Okay, you talk about how Catalyst can help them in their interest. Not everyone who's into Cardano has interests. You'll have ADA holders who just want to hold the ADA, and you're not going to reach everyone. But of the community members, I suggest it's onboarding. You know, so explain what a CA does and how that can. There will be some people where will just see this, and I've found this where. Just say, look, there's this opportunity to come in to Catalyst and you can become a CA. Okay, and they just it's a generalist, you know, but there are.
And I don't know. I mean, I can't help but be colored by my own experience. I mean, I manage about a dozen wallets, you know, for people that got invested in Cardano because of talking to me, you know, and there's not a one of them I think should get involved in this. They wouldn't get it. They don't care. They don't have time. You know, like I can't speak generally about the general ADA holder because I know that, you know, we're nerds. I mean, we are really nerds. And it seems like there's a lot of us and we should just bring a lot more people in here. But we're a tiny fucking fraction of this community, you know, that have the time and the ability to think about this stuff. You know, and it is cool to be a nerd in this level, right? I mean, because it's what sustains me for the last year and a half is like, nobody else knows about this, you know? It's like, and I go to Walmart and I'm not like Eric. I go into Walmart and I think, I don't want those fuckers in Cardano. I mean, I feel like, I'm like, this is like a thing, you know, this is like a different thing. And so I'm not negative about this experience. I just know how peculiar the experience is, and it's a peculiar kind of person that can come in and begin the process of even understanding what and why. You know, I mean, my family that invested in it, they understand bad monetary policy, and that's why they got in. They don't understand about self-sovereign identity. They don't understand about, you know, decentralization and when it comes to stake pools, let alone when it comes to voting on funding proposals. You know, like they don't get that and they don't have time or the head for it. So I think we have to take the people that come into the community on their own, right? There's that innate initiative that makes somebody curious enough to come into this space. And those are the people that we should really focus on, because trying to appeal to middle America to get involved in Catalyst, oh my God, you know, I can't imagine it.
Zoe.
Yeah, I very much agree. And I also think that we don't have to get them all in and stuff. I think that if the process is easily understandable enough so as many people can join, they will grow organically and stuff. Because yeah, the time aspect is a really big one, especially at the moment when every information bits are distributed over several Discord servers, Telegram channels, Twitter accounts, and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, it's a cool experience and stuff, but it will evolve and it has to. And when it comes to certain points that allow certain things to happen, they will happen, like mass adoption. But yeah, we'd have to make a lot of work. I mean, it's okay, there's the mailing list, that's pretty central. And also the town hall, but with the town hall, it stops already with possibilities for people to really take part in stuff. And that's just reality. And I think that we don't have to focus on some randies that have a little ADA in their Binance. I mean, they probably, if they leave their crypto on the exchange, they have, I don't know, a handful of cryptos, and it doesn't really make sense to make and manage a new wallet for everything and get to learn the whole chain and stuff, what you could do. I think that stuff needs time, and yeah, things will happen when they're ready.
One thing I would say that I would not consider a community member who just holds ADA, because it seems to be a volatile asset where you can make some money. And for me, as an ADA holder, what I meant that he believed in goals, and that's why he invested, and he's going to hold it because of that. And that I would already consider a community member, like a lurker. He keeps up to date. He knows what's going on. He holds, but he doesn't. He's not too much involved. Nadia.
Thanks, I'm back. Sorry about that. I started to say I really appreciate the conversation about roles and process and onboarding and bringing people in and finding a place for them, and or them finding the place for themselves. And I think we just have a very heavy role discussion. And a role becomes your identity. I'm a this, I'm a this, I'm a this, I'm a this, and a this, I'm all these things. And once that part of the process is over, you're not that until you're that again. Or if you weren't involved in it, you're not that as well. So, and identity also, if there's conflict between this role and this role, now you're one or the other, and it sort of starts that again. I just say that all to say, when someone comes into the process, how they get involved when someone comes to Catalyst, how they get involved, it has a lot to do with timing. And if we started to talk maybe in a parallel way about, okay, you know what, the best thing you can do right now to help and to get involved in Catalyst is to help us think about this process. Right now, we're in this part of the Catalyst process, and there are these things that are procedural around that you can do. So voting is a process. It requires this. Being a CA is really like a series of process tasks. And if you do these things, then you've accomplished it. But be the person that you are and all of the qualities that you've brought to it as you do that, because what we really need is to make the whole process better. It seems to me also heavily, this is like my deep feeling, that the whole pre-proposal finalization process is misweighted in its attention to community involvement compared to the post process, the post finalization process. And if we started talking about it, we're in the proposal drafting process, and here's some of the different things that you could get involved in through this time. Not you're going to be a this or be a this or be a this, so that we could all go, okay, well, let me try that out. And then these are the things I noticed, versus having some kind of a label put on it in terms of what you are versus what you're doing. That might be a little heady, but I'd love to see that conversation start to happen, because then we're all focused on something different than our individual, who we are individually and what that means within the system, and more on the collective improvement of the whole process itself. If people understand that when they come in, then they're like, okay, I'm not surprised that things are breaking. I'm not surprised that doesn't make any sense, and this totally failed. And now it's less interpersonal and more of all of us focused on adoption of new things that work better.
Steven, you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I'll just pick it up on that. I think decomposing the process is vital in order to make it into a financial instrument. Why? Because if we can tempt people will hold ADA. Why are they holding ADA? They might just hold ADA because it's a cryptocurrency. We want to get beyond that, so that they're thinking more in terms of that hackneyed word, utility, you know, the kind of the tokenization aspect. So they get tempted in to governance. Okay, when you tempt people in away from the cryptocurrency, from the currency model to the utility token model, so they're kind of treating it more like a financial services platform rather than just a currency platform. So you decompose the process, you make parts of the process a financial instrument. The CA process, for example, the crowdsourced CA process, basically that's a financial instrument. It's a crowdsource. It's incentivizing people to come along who hold ADA to say, look, if you hold ADA, we can do this as well. So you need to be more of that, not less of that, but it needs to be broken down more, is my view. And we need to get there by decomposing our governance processes, distributing them around so people can invest in them, essentially. That's how I think we should proceed.
Okay, we stopped a little too long, I would say, community member side, but we got a few stickies. We have 3 rows to go, and I think this is gonna be a juicy one because we already shared some of that. So how proposal assessors are related to assessment reviewers, which we call veteran community advisors. Share point outs and guidance for assessments. So these assessment reviewers will share point outs and guidance for not just assessments, but assessors. But that's something it's good to have. They don't have to do, but because they mainly, how do I help? Because if they filter out your assessment, is that considered a help? If you are a proposal assessor and you're giving assessment and it's filtered out, do you feel helped?
Depends if the VCAs actually provide any input on why they filtered out instead of just leaving it blank. So if they follow the guidelines all the way through and actually do provide the optional feedback, then yes, potentially.
Okay, and that's just that would cover the pink one. It seems like there should be so many activity between veteran community advisors and proposal assessors. But right now it's like it feels like in a hostile collaboration instead of activities they could do together, or yeah, discussions they could have together.
Well, the thing that makes it weird is that these people are in the same group. They are CAs, they are VCAs, they are trying to game the system, they are being very successful, we are rewarding them, and we're not doing much about it.
We are doing something about it, because compared to last round, there are new blockers in order to kind of capture that bad intention. But yeah, I don't know how long we can run this game, because we are disincentivizing the actual good actors to do the hard work, and they do it less every fund, and the gamers just are getting better at.
I was about to quit this shit last Monday or whenever the results came out, and it said that I lost $1,100 because of this.
What would you, okay, so is there anything else you would expect from a veteran community advisor other than they giving a rationale why they filtered or gave you a rating?
I think this is a symptom of the proposal process, partly the scale. So I'll go back to, I think this is systemic. So if you had I know there's a suggestion of a 2-stage process that various people have suggested that. So a kind of divide and rule approach where you submit a statement of interest proposal, and then you have say junior CAs or training CAs doing that, and then a second stage where you have more knowledgeable VCAs or whatever doing the main proposal. At the moment, you've got. So, at the moment, Tommy's ball now. You got VCAs kind of in conflict with CAs, which is not ideal. I think it's escalated.
I think really until point. Also, because right now we really have this, let's say, great advantage to say, hey, it's an all permissionless environment. Everybody can join, everybody can become a CA, right? But we are not able to scale the quality of the CAs, because when everybody joins after a certain amount of time, after a certain community growth, you can't ensure the quality anymore, right? Because then you have just, and so to make it all the time, I think it's funny to see that mostly inclusive systems die by their own inclusivity very often. Because then you just allow everybody to come. And when it means that everybody comes means, and in a permissionless environment, it means very often, well, people who are able to take the opportunity will design the ecosystem, right? But not people who maybe would not have other incentives. But sorry, Nin, and then Steve, I think.
So I think one of the points of conflict here is that filter out assessments don't get paid, right? What if they still get paid? Would a lot of the conflict go away?
Would it just provoke an overproduction of assessments? When I would know if they are good or invalid, I will receive rewards anyway. Well, maybe I incentivize people even more to go in quantity than in quality.
Well, we have something. I don't know how exactly the VCA quality or how they get, but some are like 0.75, 1, and 1.5 kind of reward modifier, something like that. If you do just bad CA reviews, you can get a modifier of like super low, right? That can be done, and you can actually measure quality by feeding training data, fake data, true positives, true negatives, blah blah blah, automatically to CAs.
Good point, actually.
You know, like I've been on some proposals. I think 3 out of the last 4 or 5 funding rounds, and every one of them, the assessments that I read, you know, there's at least a couple, you know, every time where it's clear they didn't understand the challenge or the proposal, and I want it to be open and permissionless, but you know, if you don't understand what you're reading, then I don't feel like you're in the right place. And I don't know, you know, because I've brought this up repeatedly. I know other people have talked about it, and I'm curious from Nin and Tomi and Nadia's perspective, do you think that there's progress that's been made, being made, or can be made, and at least making sure that the CAs, the assessors, actually know what they're doing, know what they're reading? I mean, is there any plan for that?
Are you talking about, so I think this is a really important conversation for everyone, and it's not a specific answer that any one person can give. So I'll just give this as some ideas. First, I guess the question is, are you talking about people who like come? So let's assume someone wants to do a good job and comes in there and really reads the guides and takes time and comes in with their effort. Do you mean someone who has like done that work and then fails to accomplish what the requirements are? Or do you mean someone who doesn't fundamentally understand what the approach of the proposal is because they don't have maybe some component of either industry specific knowledge or specialization or something
Yeah,
is, I mean, understand the proposal?
Yeah, I think you know, like I ran into this last year with the African proposals, in that they didn't really understand, you know, what needs to be done in Africa. You know, like the assessments were just kind of like their bully pulpit for talking about their thoughts about Africa. But, you know, more specifically, you know, I've seen big disconnects in the last 2 funding rounds that I've had stuff in there on where they didn't understand the challenge, right? They were applying criticisms that did not apply to that challenge. And that's glaring for me, you know, like that's a really miscomprehension of what they're even supposed to do. And I'm, you know, like I want to believe that the CAs are on point, that when they pull out a proposal to assess, They know why that proposal is in that challenge and how that proposal is addressing the challenges and goals. I see, it's not the majority of the assessments that I see doing that by any means, but it's enough, right? It's a distraction, and it's, unless somebody like, a proposer raises all kinds of hell, then, and points fingers at them, nobody's even going to know that. It's not the proposer's job to instruct the assessors. And that's kind of been the feeling that I've had, is that I need to teach this guy, what's messed up about, his assessment. And it's not my job as a proposer.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think it's a very frustrating part of the process. And I think something that perhaps would be the most valuable is if we took really some good time understanding what the roots of these problems are. It could be the system itself is not really the right response to the need for the assessments, right? So that's something like really broad. That's something to be looked at. And then I think it's really important that we dive down into what we define what it is that we're looking at. Is like a bad assessment. What does that mean? And how many are like this? How big of an issue is this as the root cause versus this as the root cause? The VCA process, for example, we have this outcome of the feeling of groupthink and of new problems here that were created as a response to Fund 7 problems. Perhaps these were obvious and foreseeable things for some people, but so period. Perhaps those things would have been easily foreseen if certain people had looked at that. But there was a collective group that went through Fund 7 and identified that there were these extreme issues for outliers that for people who came and gamed it. And so certain things were put in place to solve for that, but new things happen as a result of that. And I think it's very much the same for CAs. And eventually, if we solve for so many different things that seem like they're problems, you end up with real confusion about what you're actually solving for and new things that come as a result of that. So this is a really hard question to answer for me. Maybe for someone else it would be easy. I think that I would answer it by saying that we should, if there's a critical mass of things that we could avoid by making an adjustment, then certainly we should do that. You put too many patches on a boat, you have a boat that's patches. So I think really understanding what we mean when we identify these things is key, and then working together to try to think about what things actually address that is the next step. And that's sort of ongoing from fund to fund. So, and then DREPs will throw a whole other thing into it. So I'm not giving you a very specific answer, other than the specific answer is that I think the response to this could be that we take time to really look at what happened and identify what those issues were and address them in a way that is comparable to the impact that they're having.
Yeah, I wanted to reply to the still paying filtered out. I think that a filtering out without then incentivizing the assessment is kind of necessary because of bots and copy paste and stuff. I think that it was just a random idea, but I think it would make sense maybe to incentivize comments by VCAs, because yeah, VCAs obviously have to do a lot of work, and the most complaints when I asked for why are you not commenting and stuff, it's too much work and it needs so much time and stuff. I think maybe this would yeah, help also, because CAs, you know, everybody could become a CA, and many CAs would be thankful for feedback, and the comments from VCAs are very valuable.
Something for the Steve, why I like, and I think it should remain permissionless for proposal assessors to come in and like assess proposals in their best ability, even if it's totally wrong how they do it. They don't even reach guidelines. It gives this kind of anti-fragility to the system. And second, it forces the proposers to read about the assessments people are giving to them and trains them to defend against random stuff, against attacks and scams, basically. And yeah, so basically, I think that's also valuable to find value in that, and also train VCAs to kind of spot these kinds of issues. I know it's an overhead, but it's gonna happen. There is no, I don't think there is a possibility that we can avoid that. So it's better to make it easier for them to make these kinds of mistakes, and we just need a process, which we have mentioned several times before, that a two-step process that we could just not to in future, not to give you hundreds of assessments which are crap, but still leave you few that you get the gist of what kind of things you might have to defend yourself against in the future.
Well, I do feel like if you're going to take on a position in the community that has this much influence and basically power, you know, with regards to the Treasury, you know, they should be tested. I mean, they should just be tested to see where their comprehension level is. Because that's what strikes me over and over again. I'm reading assessments from people who don't even comprehend what's going on, and you know, I don't think it's being an asshole to say, hey, we need to check and make sure you understand. And I don't think it's becoming not open and permissionless to do that. It's just qualifying, you know, the person who's going into this position.
Yeah, and I think this stage is supposed to happen when they do the first proposal assessing, and then there is that audit VCAs and proposers themselves who kind of help to give the quick look to the assessments and already kind of mitigate from the both technical side, like how many like similar assessments are done, who seems to be gaming the system, to see the analytical statistics of how this essay is, and the proposer side who can just say, hey, this person didn't even read the challenge because clearly he doesn't understand, and give them that insight to the VCA people so that you can mass kind of filter out. Because the last time I was able to be a VCA, this is basically what I did. I just had to go through similarity kind of way and see what people are doing. And if you already do 5 assessments where you clearly state what is not in proposal, then all the other assessments, I'm just going to filter them out, because, oh my God, you cannot just fail to not notice some critical thing of what is in proposal and just lying about it. But yeah, going too far again from the topic of today. 2 rows left. T-reps. How could proposal assessors help T-reps? Then how would you prefer proposal assessors to help T-reps? Because because when I look, I do look at the community advisor rating. I do read the proposal assessors, and honestly, I made decisions based on do I vote or not because of what proposer wrote, but I sometimes also consider what assessor wrote. So as a T-rep, I will definitely read these 2. So I think they provide a valuable insight.
Yeah, I think we're going to know something about D-reps soon. As far as I know, there's going to be around, or there has been around 200 accepted already. There's the talk of term limits for D-reps. You know, so some of the conditions are emerging, but I mean, as Zoe says, we don't really know everything.
and D-reps in turn, I'm now turning it around. As I read proposal assessors, I learn more about visibility and audibility from their standpoint. But I would assume, as if, let's assume I get to be a D-rep, in return to the proposal assessors, I could also provide the information that, hey, these proposal teams already have been here, they have been developing, the intention is in the right place, and I'm voting yes for these, and the proposal assessors could already take that as an information that, oh, okay, they are doing already projects, they are well-rounded in the Catalyst.
Yeah.
But is there a danger of echo chambers?
There's a transparency issue where, let's say, I'm not sure of the timing. So let's say it's fund 9 or 10 and the D-reps are introduced, you know, when do they come online? You know, so how transparent is their platform? Okay, that's the key thing. So, you know, because the D-reps are going to represent a set of proposals or challenges that they are going to vote for. Yeah. So you're delegating your vote to that representative person who represents a certain view of proposals. That needs to be known to everyone. There's questions about how fixed that should be, but how that relates to proposal assessments, presumably it needs to be quite stable so that you can relate your proposal assessment to the platform that D-rep is representing, presumably.
Yeah, I would phrase all of that differently, you know, because I think of the D-reps as having a responsibility to the voters who are delegating to them, as well as the responsibility to the community, right? So like, if I imagine myself as a D-rep, what do I imagine myself doing? I imagine myself reaching out to the proposers as soon as they drop their proposal and say, hey, let's get to know you, right? Let me get to know you. Let me meet your team. Let's do it on YouTube or a Twitter space, and let's talk about it, you know, and in that process.
Sorry, Steve. And you're going to do that for 1,000 people, 1,000 teams, every fund?
Well, I'm going to focus on, you know, the range of proposals that I say that I'm going to, you know, these are the, you know, like I'm not going to get into tool building proposals, right? I'm not going to, I can't wade through that stuff because I'm not a tech guy. I assume there'd be more technical oriented D-reps that could do that. That's what I would be hoping.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and in that sense, you know, then I'm like, you know, if there's a challenge and it's like Africa community hubs, you know, bring them on. We'll have a monster YouTube stream, and you guys represent yourselves to me. And in the process, they'll reveal themselves not just to me, but to the voters who watch this stuff. You know, and we'll know who's competent. We'll know where their hearts are, and you know, we'll figure it out. You know, and we'll figure out if a D-rep does that at the beginning of a funding round, he can actually do that community advising, that proposal advising that needs to happen. You know, in the sense that you could say, hey, you've got a great idea, but you need this kind of person on your team to make it happen, right? You need somebody who knows Plutus to do that kind of application, and maybe I can help you find a Plutus guy, and maybe I can't. But you're not going to go anywhere with this proposal until you get, you know, this element added into it, this team member added into it. And that's kind of where the D-rep is a huge thing if it's proactive. You know, like if I think I'm worried that there may be some people who are thinking about and have put in a submission to be a D-rep who think, oh, they're just going to sit back and vote. You know. And I don't think that that's doing the job of a D-rep as I imagine it.
I don't agree on everything, kind of, because it's not necessarily the D-rep's job to make content creation. and also not to interview teams and to like tell whom with whom you should work together. I think that this is more, as I understood, like community advising.
Well, but see, like,
and,
how do you know as a D rep? Let me just ask
Yeah.
you, Zoe, as a D rep, how do you know who you want to vote for?
Yeah,
Right? This is like doing,
as I
for me, this
understood,
is
it's
like doing
about,
the due diligence.
as I understood, it's about the expertise and about your interests and stuff, and about what you like know and what you're excited about. And I am honestly also concerned about how the transparency works there. How do you know what this person engages with? And even the D reps can't read through all the proposals and stuff. Maybe they will at the beginning, but I think as this is evolving, it will not be the goal to know every proposal and to always know the best team. I think that it will be much more specific and also complicated. And yeah, the transparency is really an issue. I mean, at the end, you could also say what you're voting for, and then on chain it looks different. But that's something else. And I really just wanted to say that it's. I think the D-rep thingy will be much more nuanced than just creating content and knowing about teams. And very much more possibilities also.
I suspect the scope of the D-reps will be tested in the first iteration, Zoe. You know, so I think as Steve's, I think that you're going to get a range of different attitudes to what being a D-rep means. And we're going to see that play out in the first iteration. So some D-reps will probably have more engaged interests than others. And we'll probably see the consequences of that, where some D-reps will be more champions for certain proposals even, or certain challenges, and will push back against people who criticize that, or, you know, there'll be that kind of dynamic going on, I suspect, unless there's some rules, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is, I think this will be very much, I don't know. I think there will be as many different D-reps as they are D-reps. That's my guess. Kinda, yeah. Yeah, and how do you know which D-rep you might want to delegate to? It's a mystery. I think that many things will work over how you create your social media presence and persona and stuff. I think that lots of it will come to this. Yeah, I don't know.
D-rep is an unknown role, but we did get two things what we would expect from them. So jumping to the last but not least, to the voter, already wrote ahead that the obvious things, that proposal assessors provide rating assessment for proposals to help with the voting. And another one, what Nick pointed out, invite to vote on proposals, so proposal assessors. Is there anything else?
Sorry, Tivo, I just wanted to add to the previous one that I think it's ludicrous to think that one person as a D-rep could vote for everything, or even 20% of them. You would need to have a team, so that there has to be some sort of teams, and then this quickly becomes political parties, and that's very dangerous.
You know, and you know, the other thing about it is that, you know, the D-rep is going through a process, and as a funding round goes on, you know, like I can imagine being turned on by a proposal when I first read it, but then over a period of 3 or 4 weeks, as they lock in their proposal, and as you as a D-rep investigate the team or have conversation with the team, you think, yeah, you know, I'm not so hot on this proposal anymore. I don't know that I'm going to vote on it. And, you know, like I don't know, you know, I don't want to turn being a D-rep into a reality show, you know, because I mean, you could just imagine what that would look like. But at the same time, it is a process of investigation that DREP should go through. You know, I feel, you know, like if they're really being, you know, sincere.
Steve, I've heard that almost all applications have been accepted. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but if it is true, then it becomes a test of quality in the first iteration. You know, so if everyone's been, why has everyone been accepted? Perhaps they need the numbers. You know,
The same reason they accept all the CAs, right?
Yeah. So then it becomes
open and permissionless. What's the
I think
number?
it's
Have you heard of the number?
200, but I'm not sure if that's true. But, and I suspect there will be, I'm not sure how the choices will be presented. I think, of course, at some point, their choices will have to be presented to the voters so that voters know what they're delegating to. But when that's frozen, I don't know. You don't know, Steve, do you either? So
I haven't heard anything.
I think it was 150, but I also saw an email going out that says we're still accepting applications or reopening applications for more DREPs. So you guys want to do it, do it. I heard it's going to be paid and so on, so you can do it full time if that's your thing, right? I suspect that the DREP and the delegated representative will follow somewhat of the SPO delegation model where, you know, the more delegation you have, the more voting power you have, but applied to governance, not just staking, right? How do SPOs get money delegations these days, right? I'm actually looking for some stake pools to delegate to, and I have no idea. There's some tools out there that will tell me what the pools are, what's the return on investment, what their mission is. Some pools have commitments, right? We want to give portion of whatever we make. Definitely consider Swarm, Felix. Some pools have like commitment and allocation towards, you know, like community activities or nonprofit stuff or impact. So I assume it's going to be similar, right? Except that probably they're going to be given time in breakout rooms and, you know, whatnot.
Yeah.
But I also know that it's only a pilot right now, right? Which sounds like they're gonna move forward with it if it's successful. But are they getting rid of everyone else's votes, or is it only you cannot vote or you can delegate? Essentially creating
democracy, so we can do both.
Yeah, you can do both.
Oh,
You
gotcha.
can delegate some and vote some.
So kind of like creating mini wells, right? Community pick wells.
Kinda, yes. And more info, if anything comes up, you will see it from community governance oversight too, because it's an active thing we look into. But yeah, not to indulge more into this. So for the voters, is this too sticky enough that, or there is something else what comes up that how proposal assessor helps voter or how voter helps proposal assessor? My bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if a DREP is aggressive in the sense of I want to get the people that I'm considering voting for into a conversation, right? I don't know. I'd be curious. 567 CAs. How many of them are watching, you know, or listening to Twitter spaces when these proposers go on and represent themselves, or on a YouTube show, you know, like, I mean, how diligently are they, you know, researching the guys that they're planning on assessing? You know, that's a very interesting question to me. You know, these things are, you know, like you know, you can tell a well-written proposal. It doesn't tell you that much about the person sometimes, you know, and, you know, I think we do need to know about these people, right? You know, we want to give them treasury money, you know, and I don't know, you know, it's like we can't demand much of one another, right? We're all here free and voluntarily, and we try to do a good job for the community. And, you know, I don't know how to tell people, hey, you should watch this guy, you know, because I don't know what you have to do with your time. You may have 8 kids. I don't know. And yet, if we want earnest effort put into this process, you know, I think that we have to pursue it. You know, we have to pursue excellence. You know, it's not just going to happen because we read a fucking proposal.
Right. You heard it here from the hardcore members of Project Catalyst. And with this, I will conclude Innovation Fund Research Proposal Assessor Perspective. This is the outcome from 3 meetings, and this was the longest and most craziest. It went every second, every session went deeper and deeper. So if you are a watcher and you got here, then you are also a hardcore member. And thank you for watching. And for those who are here, I shared the form. You can find it here. I'm also post it again to the chat. It's a simple one, and I will be asking basically, how do you feel about this session and the way it was conducted? You basically give your rating, and you have optional to add some more information here, which you don't have to fill, but would very good if the most of you do it, because I'm trying to also capture how many people are going into forums and creating this culture of starting to give feedback, because I think in a lot of these sessions we lack the understanding and quantifiable information how we are conducting and facilitating these meetings. And this will also give some metrics for my proposal to show, hey, this thing got this kind of rating. This is how people understood, and I actually learned from this, and I think this template, you see, this keeps improving because of that feedback you give there.
Thanks for doing this, Tivo. I appreciate it. And I'm going to leave because I have to decide.
Thanks, guys.
Stop
Great
recording.
session. Thank you, guys.
Take care.
See you later. Have a great weekend.